This is the Monday, December 9th edition of the map discussion. The map looks like this. We have a pretty decent sized system up in the upper Great Lakes with numerous fronts extending down through the central and southern plains, while that area of moisture that we saw in the previous video last week is still sliding across the northern Gulf states. This is about to get sucked up into our system starting tomorrow afternoon, which we will get to right now. Is the European Ensemble Prediction System. In the colors, the shaded regions are the mid-level heights. So you can see this very strong dip in that's a mid-level trough. So typically out ahead of it, you'll have surface low pressures like you see here in red. The black lines are the surface response to upper level troughs and ridges. So as we go forward in time, this is tomorrow afternoon, Tuesday, December 10th. This storm system is going to get reinvigorated. That is currently along the Gulf Coast. It's going to get reinvigorated by this upper level trough. You see how sharp it is. This is actually very, very sharp trough. And as we go through time, it's just going to sharpen. And as it sharpens, you see these black lines. Those black lines are surface pressure. So here you have a surface low pressure indicated by this particular model. Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. somewhere in the Albany, New York region, with a front extending southward. You can see the kinks in these black lines. That's the surface front. And this surface low is strengthening in response to this upper level system. So typically out ahead of the upper level troughs is when you can find some low pressure centers. And as this particular low pressure center gets reinvigorated by the steepening of this trough here, it's going to suck up some Gulf moisture and pretty much wring out some pretty heavy rain and wind across the Carolinas, especially the western parts of the Carolinas. And you can see the closer the lines, the black lines are, the windier it is. And as you can see along the spine of the Appalachian Mountains, especially in West Virginia and Virginia and North and South Carolina, it is going to be very, very windy up there. And maybe some hints of snow on the backside of this low pressure center. If that cold air can catch up to the precipitation and turn it to snow, that should be mainly confined to the mountain regions. So that system goes off to the north and east, and then high pressure noses its way down. We've heard this story before, but here's something a little bit different. Notice, if we go back a few frames, that this high pressure in southern Canada is mainly going to be, which is home to some very cold air, actually, is mainly going to be confined to the northern parts of the United States or southern Canada. But this high pressure right here, this center right here, if we trace it back, this is actually coming from northern Mexico. So this typically, when you see these deep blues, there's a bunch of cold air up there, and these lines, the black lines, are really close together. So this is cold, windy air on the backside of this system. Typically, you'll see some pretty hefty cold air infiltrate the eastern United States, but not this time. This time, we're going to have this high pressure center coming from Mexico instead of Canada, which is interesting. Yeah, so that's it's not going to be as cold as it was. It's not going to be hot either. Just going to be pretty even, actually. Then the next storm system gets its act together going into Friday into the early parts of the weekend. You can see just a little bit of a more normal trough in the upper levels, and you can see a surface response, a low pressure center track along with it. And here's the other. You can see the pattern we're in. It's very what we call progressive pattern, where you just have troughs migrating across the United States. Now, what about those air masses? Where are those? Here's one of my favorite maps, the mean 2-meter temperature anomaly, a departure from average, averaged over the course of 5 days. So we can really get a sense of where those warm and cold air masses are. So you see this massive amount of cold air in south central Canada, up in the northern parts of North Dakota and Minnesota. As you can see over the course of the next 4 to 8 days, this is really going to be confined to southern Canada. It's not really going to make its way southward like we've seen before. And that's because of this high pressure originating from northern Mexico, which is going to help bring in a more modest air mass across the eastern parts of the United States. And with that, a general warming trend across pretty much the entire United States, the lower 48. As far as precipitation goes, this is the GEFS. This is the American model, and this is the total accumulated precipitation in inches. So as we go forward in time, this is where that low pressure center is really getting its act together and getting that moisture from the Gulf of Mexico and maybe even from the Atlantic, and wringing it out over the parts of the southeastern United States and eventually into the New England and southeastern Canada over the course of the next 3 to 4 days. But after that, not a whole bunch of a lot. You have a bunch of precipitation starting to fall across the Pacific Northwest. And we can take a look at the Euro. And the Euro model is going to paint a very similar picture. The devil's in the details, though. We got more rain at the end of this towards the 14th across parts of the mid-south. But other than that, it paints a very similar story as much as the precipitation part goes. But really, it's not going to be as cold as it has been across the Carolinas because it's almost like a pattern shift, just about, where we have a more progressive west to east flow instead of a more meridional or a north and south flow from Canada, which will help bring those temperatures from Canada. Typically, they bring them down here to the United States, but it's going to be locked up in Canada for at least the next little bit. For this particular video, here's a look at the storm system that's going to bring us some rain. And y'all just stay safe out there. And I'll see you in the next one.